What's going on, guys? This is Second and Short. Welcome on into our 8th edition of these divisional breakdowns. This is the AFC East Division. I am Tyler, joined with Aaron, and we got a special guest again for another episode. We got Luigi here with us. Luigi, welcome on into Second and Short.
Thanks, Tyler. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing super.
Yeah, I'm feeling great. You know, it's a late night here, but I'm excited to be talking about this division, and there's a lot to talk about. So, but before we get into that division, let's talk about this this rumor that's going around. OBJ is apparently wanting out of Cleveland. Luigi, what do you got for that?
I was reading an article today about what Colin Cowherd said on the Herd this morning, and he said the same source that gave him Brady to Tampa before Brady decided to go to Tampa texted him and said that Odell Beckham wants out and that he's going to demand to be traded before the start of the season.
Aaron, what do you think about that? Like, is that smart for him, or is it like, should he do it?
It's not really surprising knowing who Odell Beckham is and who he's been up until now. The rumor I'm reading says that the Browns and Vikings are in talks, trading for Odell for a second and a fifth round pick. So I guess, I don't know. It's not surprising, is what I have to say.
Luigi, what are your thoughts on that?
On the whole Vikings trade, I don't understand why Minnesota would trade one diva for another. But I mean, Odell, face it, he's top wide receiver in the league. Trading for him would exponentially boost a team's offense. So it would be smart in the Vikings sense if they could control him, but which of the two teams he's been on has been able to control Odell?
Well, and I think that's great value for the talent he has. The question is, would they be able to handle his personality?
You know, here's the thing, though, and this is no disrespect towards Eli Manning or towards Baker Mayfield, but Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback. As much as people in Minnesota don't like him for some reason, Kirk Cousins would be OBJ's best quarterback he's had, in my eyes. And maybe he wouldn't be a diva if he had this talent around him. You know, they got Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen. They got a pretty good offensive line, a winnable division. He might fit there. So from that, let's move on to something that's less real topical and just more so if you're paying attention. Everybody's been changing jerseys across the NFL. Aaron, who's getting new jerseys this year? What jerseys look awesome, and what jerseys just like don't make any sense and shouldn't be worn?
Well, the two major changes were the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers they got rid of the alarm clock numbers and they went back to like the kind of like similar to that look they had in the early 2000s when they won the Super Bowl. They also reduced the logo size by 13%, which was exactly the right percent. 12% is too little, and then 14 is just too much. I think those look really great. The Atlanta Falcons changed their jerseys. People were kind of giving them a lot of grief on the internet, Reddit, and Twitter and stuff because they kind of look XFL-ish, I would say. But I actually really like them. The one thing I don't like about their jerseys are they have the ATL on the front and big right above their number, which kind of looks goofy. Other than that, the Colts kind of touched up their jerseys and also kind of like they changed the lettering on the team name and added a kind of a weird looking secondary logo. And then the Browns yesterday or today for you guys kind of released new uniforms, but like they're not really all that different. They look, I don't know, I don't really have an opinion on those.
Luigi, what jerseys stood out to you or anything like that when you were checking these out?
I really like the Tampa Bay new jerseys. I felt like they just kind of pop out a little bit more. But I also wanted to touch on the Rams' new logo. That was or is quite possibly the worst logo I've seen for the NFL. Um, I I don't know how you take a logo and kind of twist it around to go from. I mean, their logo wasn't great to begin with, but now it's probably the worst one in the league. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's not one that I would look at and be like, oh wow, that's a good logo.
Yeah, we talked about that in the previous episode. Yeah, we both are kind of in agreement with you.
Yeah, it's not gonna get popular. Like nobody's gonna enjoy that logo ever. People are gonna like wear like hats with it on, like just because it's their team and they want new hats, but like they're not gonna enjoy it. Like that's all. All right, so of these jerseys, yeah, there's nothing I saw. The Browns, like you were saying, I feel like when the Browns get new jerseys, they're just the same jersey
It's just like
every time.
rearranging furniture.
It's just like
it's always kind of the same thing.
it's it's just like a different tint of brown slightly, but not really. Like which is so creative. But let's jump into the AFC East here. You know, this division, out of all the divisions we talked about, and we saved it for last for a good reason, is going to have maybe the most turnover positionally on like where these teams finish, I believe, than it has in the past couple of years. The big story is where we're gonna start. We're gonna start with the New England Patriots.
Fitzpatrick sprint out, intercepted, and goodbye. Stephon Gilmore, touchdown on a pick six.
You know, Tom Brady is no longer in town. He is gone. He's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and it's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen with this team. Are they gonna continue to dominate this division because Bill Belichick is just that good, or is this turnover gonna affect them? Luigi, you are our resident expert on the Patriots. Why don't you give us a talk on like who they lost and who they gained? Like, what do you see that's a big factor for them?
A couple of the most important losses, in my opinion, Jamie Collins. He's quite the dynamic linebacker. He was probably our quickest linebacker. He was one of our best chances at stopping someone like Lamar. In my opinion, they didn't utilize him enough when playing against the Ravens. It always seemed like he was dropping back into pass coverage as opposed to trying to be like the spy on Lamar. But he was our quickest linebacker, and then another linebacker who we lost that factored into the main defensive schemes was Kyle Van Noy. Those two are going to be huge losses, and I don't know. They definitely haven't signed anybody to be able to replace either one of those two. So they may go into the draft looking at linebacker position in the first round. Maybe like Kenneth Murray or Zach Bond, I believe, are a couple of guys. But outside of Brady, those are probably our two most important losses, I would say. The other one is actually Daron Harmon. He's not a name that's talked about a whole lot, but he always seemed to be the guy that was in the right place at the right time. I think he actually, over his entire tenure with the Patriots, led the Patriots in interceptions because it always seemed like he was right there making the play whenever he needed to make the play. So those are really in my opinion, our 3-4, including Brady, most important losses. I think Belichick is smart enough to be able to come back from this, but it would take a heck of a draft. And Belichick really hasn't had a great draft in the last 4 or 5 years or so. It's been a lot of taking shots in the darks, and not a lot of them have been working out.
Aaron, what about you, man?
Yeah, I agree. He hasn't had a lot of great drafts lately. I think as long as Belichick is there, I think the Patriots this year are the team to beat, unless a team comes along and proves otherwise. Maybe the Bills. But I think that the Pats still are the team to beat. Also, kind of depends on quarterback play. They added a few pieces. Adrian Phillips re-signed Devin McCourty and Matt Slater, and Joe Thuney as well. So they kind of kept those guys around. Added Brian Hoyer at backup QB, which I mean he's kind of a known face around there. So I think we just got to see what they do. It'll be interesting to see what they do at pick 23.
So for me, when I'm looking at this, I actually think Adrian Phillips is an amazing pickup for them. He had a really good graded out year by Pro Football Focus last year. He was close to the 90s. And I think that's a very underrated signing, which is something that the Patriots are historically known for doing. They always sign guys that don't get highlighted in the media, don't get highlighted on websites, and then come out and perform really well. And we just are like, oh, how'd they get him? Here's what's going to determine this Patriots team going forward is what they do at quarterback and what they do at 23. If they move up, if they sign, Jameis Winston and Cam Newton are still out there. Right now, they can't really afford them. However, every day those guys' price drops a little bit, where they're going to accept less money. Louis, is Jarrett Stidham the guy? Is that the guy, or is he just the
Jarrett Stidham is not the guy. I think he has a lot of potential, but I would say in this particular draft, he's probably not even in the top 10 of the QBs, just in this draft itself. There's so much QB talent in this draft. I don't believe the Patriots do not go into this draft thinking that they aren't going to be drafting a quarterback. So let me rephrase that. I think they are going to be going into this draft to draft a quarterback, whether it be at their first round pick or their third round pick. Because I believe even at that third round pick, you could get somebody potentially like Jake Fromm, who has shown so much potential. And I think Jake Fromm could come in and start over Jarrett Stidham right off the bat.
I think Jake Fromm is kind of like their style of quarterback. He's not like going to go out and really blow anyone's socks off, but he's a very he's kind of avoids mistakes. He's a safer quarterback, and he's not going to go out and throw for 400 or 500 yards a game, but he's a very dependable, safe quarterback. So I think he kind of fits that team pretty well.
So let's break down the question that everybody's been saying. Are the Patriots potentially going to tank? And it's hard to say that because Bill Belichick is a winner. He's the greatest coach to ever coach in the NFL. And I don't think losing is in his cards, Yes, he was once coaching special teams for the Browns, but I don't think he likes losing ever since then, He's not used to it. Is this team maybe going to be shifting their focus because getting somebody like Trevor Lawrence next year can just keep you going consistent?
As much as I don't believe in tanking anyways in the NFL, I think there's zero chance that Belichick allows that to happen. I don't think the thought has even speculated about crossing his mind, so no.
It's my opinion that if Stephon Gilmore is still a part of the team by the end of the draft, that they will not be tanking. I do understand the cap situation would be better if they traded him or cut him post June 1st. But I think going into the draft, they have to have a mindset on where they're going. So if they're going to be tanking, then I do believe somebody in the later part of the first round, maybe the Vikings or maybe even Kansas City, could potentially decide to trade for Gilmore, their first round pick. Because they're towards the end of the first round, I would say the top 3 or 5, let's say 3 corners will be gone. 5, let's say Minnesota's second first round pick. So if that's where Belichick is planning on going with this team, then I don't think Gilmore will be on the team by the end of the draft. So we should know that answer by next Sunday night.
See, I think that the New England Patriots could swerve everybody in this draft. I believe that 4 quarterbacks are going to go very early, before the Patriots even are on the clock at 23. Bill Belichick knows value when he sees it, and this draft is full of value in the first 3 rounds. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots trade down from 23. I really wouldn't. Like, they could easily trade down, gain a later first and gain another third, or gain a really late second and capitalize on the value. If 4 quarterbacks go really early, they're going to get an elite player in the 20s. I think they can go any direction. I don't think trading up for a quarterback makes sense here. I think this team has too much talent to tank. I know I asked the question, but I don't think I don't think they're bad enough to tank. Like, I still think they're better without Tom Brady and Jamie Collins and all these other guys. They're still better than the Dolphins and Jets. So, like, that's, in my opinion, like 3 to 4 wins next year minimum. The Bills they can compete with because the Bills are up and down offensively if they don't have a solid run game going. So let's talk about that number 23 pick from your guys' perspective. Luigi, you'll lead us off and everything. And we're just going to talk about 23, and I don't want to dive into the third because those picks are in the 80s and 90s and so late. Where do you think they go at 23? If you're on the clock right now, which you've picked for them before in a mock that we've done, but where do you think they go?
I agree 100% that they trade back. And the reason I believe that is just like what you said. There will be 4 quarterbacks to go off the board, in my opinion, as well, really early in the draft. And there will be a lot more offensive players, maybe 3 wide receivers and a running back as well. So there is going to be a lot of defensive talent there at the 23rd pick. And teams that have maybe even an early second would be willing to trade into the first round so that they could pick up the 5th-year option. So that 23rd overall pick is going to be extremely valuable. So I, if I was the Patriots, would already be taking offers on that pick, knowing how the draft is probably going to go in terms of you'll probably get, the second or third best defensive tackle or the second or third best corner or something like that at that pick. You'll message maybe even the Colts and be like, hey, what would you give me for this pick? You don't have a first-round pick. You traded it. Is there anybody there at 23 you think you'd like? Because they've got, I don't know exactly what the pick is, but I think it's like maybe 37 or 38 that they've got right there.
34. It's the second pick in the second round from the Red Sox.
So 34. So there may be a guy that they would like right there. And that would be, I don't necessarily think the Colts would do that, but that would be the type of team that I would think would trade into the first round around that 23rd pick would be a team like the Colts who have a really early second as well.
Okay, so Aaron, give us the other side of it. Like, we have the trade down scenario. Give us all right, nobody's willing to sell to us. We got to pick. Who's like an ideal kind of person that they can take that's going to help this team immediately?
I like them taking a linebacker at that spot. Like Luigi said kind of in the beginning. I don't know if Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen will be there, but Zach Bond might be a good fit depending on where they think he could play. So I kind of like linebacker at that pick. I think one of those 3 players most likely will be available. And I know you said we weren't going to talk about the 3rd round, but I really do like the idea of them taking Jake Fromm at one of those picks.
That's totally fair and everything. I just didn't want to say we had to protect, but I think linebacker is a great pick in the 20s. This draft is set up where there's 2 tiers, 3 tiers maybe, because there's Isaiah Simmons, there's an empty space in tier 2, and like top tier 3, almost tier 2 is Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray, and Zach Baum is right there too. What I like about those 3 names you listed is those guys can play inside linebacker, they can play outside, or Baum can even line up on the edge as well. He's a little undersized, but he's versatile.
Yeah, Baum played like a bunch of positions in college. I think people are kind of wary of him because he's on the smaller side, but yeah, I think he's kind of a more versatile player than the other 2.
A guy like that kind of just screams Bill Belichick, because Bill Belichick likes to get. The word that affiliates with Belichick is efficiency. Like, how much can you do for me versus guy B? Luigi, would you say that's pretty right about Belichick?
Oh, 100%. That's all Belichick really cares about. What can you do for me tomorrow? Not what did you do for me last week. Um, and I was going to touch base on Zach Bond as well. He kind of reminds me. No, I'm not comparing it to him, but he kind of reminds me of Von Miller's style of play, where he can play linebacker, but he also rushes the quarterback. That's what he did in college. So that would be the type of guy, in my personal opinion, that Belichick would target. He would look at and say, "This is the type of guy I would take at 23." So let's move forward with him.
All right, so let's talk about Buffalo Bills.
Williams is back in the game.
Heavy over here with Lee Smith.
Looking for Beasley. He's got it. Touchdown, Buffalo.
This team right now, if the Patriots falter, this is the team that is going to take over this division in my eyes. They're just a very complete team. We could even call this team the Buffalo Panthers, if you will, just due to the fact that Sean McDermott signed so many former Carolina Panthers. If we're just going to go over their free agent ads, here's who they've added so far this season. Josh Norman, Mario Addison, Star Lotulelei, and Darrell Williams. All four former Panthers right there. It's just kind of what they've been doing in recent years. Aaron, lead us off with the ads and drops. I know I just kind of stole your thunder with some of those names, but there's still some more power out there. What have the Bills been doing this offseason?
Don't forget the big name that they had. First of all, they re-signed a couple of key players, Quentin Spain on the offensive line and Jordan Poyer in the defensive backfield. The biggest name they added was that trade with Minnesota, where they gave up a couple picks, including a first round, for Stephon Diggs, who they think can come in and be that number one receiver for Josh Allen. And that actually gives them a pretty decent wide receiver core with Diggs and then John Brown and Cole Beasley. So that's kind of looking like they're kind of setting up Josh Allen for success. So it's kind of really on him to come in and prove himself this year. He got better last year. Now he's got to take that next step. In terms of losses, they lost a couple of linebackers, Shaq Lawson and Lorenzo Alexander. And then they also lost Jordan Phillips on the defensive line.
So, Luigi, of those names, we'll get into the trade in a second, but what is the biggest impact that the Bills have made right here, like gains and losses, in your opinion?
I actually think the biggest impact is what they haven't addressed, which would be their offensive line. They had a bottom 12 offensive line last year, and no matter what you do in terms of like trading or drafting or signing wide receivers to help your quarterback, it's hard for your quarterback to be able to throw to those guys when you don't have a good offensive line. And I don't believe they've signed anybody who could come in and even be a backup. And they don't have very many picks to be able to address that position. I know this draft is kind of deep when it comes to offensive line, but when your first pick is 54th overall, it's kind of hard to be able to get one of those top tier guys and have them come in and immediately make an impact. At 54, you're hoping for a guy who can maybe come in a couple years once he's learned the ropes of the offense. So I honestly think that's their biggest impact, is not addressing the offensive line.
Yeah, and what's really odd about that, I mean, like they did bring in Darrell Williams and they did re-sign Spain. However, yes, they do need to add a little bit more. Darrell Williams is a couple years removed from having that, really great season, but then he got hurt. He's great value if he can retain that level of play pre-injury. But for a team that is like so focused on running the ball, and not just from like their, large number of running backs that they use, but Josh Allen is also always running. And he's young, and you got to protect a guy like that, because a guy like that is he's Cam Newton, essentially. He's Ben Roethlisberger. He's going to throw his body to the wind. He's just going to go for it. and you've got to do whatever you can to protect him in those moments that he doesn't run. I agree with that as well, that they need to address that. Here's what I think they could do. This team legitimately probably knows that they're set up to continue to make the playoffs. They will maybe make a trade up in this draft to go out and get a tackle. I love this tackle depth. I talked about it a couple episodes that I just love. You know, the big four is awesome, but guys 5 to 10, I think are still going to be studs. They're still going to be stars in this league. They can get somebody like Urza Cleveland out of Boise State, who I keep bringing up because he's one of my favorite tackle prospects. I think they might make a move up to solidify, you know, this team's talent. Aaron.
Yeah, I think at 54, I don't know if any of those top 10 tackles are going to still be there. It's kind of right on the spot where they might all be gone. So I think maybe even trading up to like the beginning of the second round would be beneficial to them. But I agree. I think they do need help on that offensive line, especially at the tackle position.
So of their losses, you know, Shaq Lawson, Lorenzo Alexander, Jordan Phillips, there's some solid players there. Lorenzo Alexander is at the tail end of a very long career. I don't know if they have done enough to improve on the edge. Mario Addison is he's a great role player. I don't know, he's not a legit starter. He was for Carolina only because they didn't have depth at defensive end and edge. However, he's in his 30s. I think they need to get younger very soon because this team is going to fall in danger of getting too old pretty soon with all these pickups. Luigi, let's talk about what you would do in the draft here. I know we're kind of just going through this a little bit. We were both saying stuff, but Buffalo Bills, what do you think they're going to do with their first 2 picks here? Like, if you can control them.
If I was to control them, like I said, I would probably go offensive line at 54th overall. I don't really exactly know who would be there off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is a guy that you could take there. And honestly, there's a lot of guys in this draft, like interior offensive line, who can play both the center and the guard position. That's a guy that I think you take there. You need somebody who can play multiple positions to help fill the depth on your line. Because if you want to compete for the Super Bowl, which is what every team is here to do, you first need to be able to run the ball and protect your quarterback. And that's something that they did better last year than the year before, but it's still something that they're not doing well that I think they need to address. And then at 86th overall, honestly, I think you have to decide, do I take the best offensive lineman available, or do I go with one of my other needs like edge or corner? Some people say running back, but I personally am a huge Devin Singletary fan. I think he's pretty explosive and dynamic. I think you could bring somebody in off the street to be a bruiser and not have to worry about spending one of your draft picks on it. So I think edge and offensive tackle or offensive guard and corner are their 3 major needs. So at their 3rd round pick, it's really which of those 3 is the best value or best player available, in my opinion.
So yeah, I think at 54, like I said, I would go offensive line. It kind of depends on who's available. Edge is also, like you said, a huge need for them. And I think I really do think it largely depends on who's available at that spot. I don't think I agree with Luigi. I think Devin Singletary is a great running back. But it still remains to be seen if he can be that like every down back. Now that Frank Gore is gone.
Now I do like if their plan is to keep Singletary as their lead back. I do like what you said there, Luigi, about them kind of bringing in like a bruiser and somebody that can just handle that load at the middle, take short yard stuff. potentially somebody that we could see there is it's a push, but if at 128, if like AJ Dillon falls to that 4th round pick right there, he'd be a great power back for them. I mean, that guy is 6 foot tall, 247 pounds. He's bigger than some linebackers that play. And that guy could be a perfect tank to just bulldoze his way through, get this team forward. He could probably even come in if they decided to play some pistol, they can pull him in as well, and he can either be a blocker or a second option. I personally think that Singletary is not the guy. That's just me. I talked about this a couple episodes ago and everything. There's just something about him that doesn't tick for me. I know he has all these credentials from college, and he has his opportunity right now to prove everybody wrong that he can be the guy. I'm excited to see it. I'm hoping that the Bills let him do it because I love to be wrong. Whenever I project about players and I like say negative things, I love for them just to like be better than I expected because it's only good for, us as fans. This team right here, if they can get in that second pick, I agree. Getting somebody that's versatile that can play multiple positions on that offensive line is key. Protection is the key here for the Bills.
I really like the AJ Dillon putting him there. I think he would be, like you said, a great fit there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And you know what? And Devin Singletary can kind of catch the ball too. I think adding that would be great for them. Now, we're going to end this team a little differently than we normally do. Let's talk about the Stephon Diggs trade a little bit more. Now, do you guys think this is a move that they should have made? They obviously have a lot of like wide receiver 2s on there, like secondary guys that can be role players, some slot receivers. They're pretty undersized. But the Stephon Diggs trade happened. They got rid of a 1st round pick. What do you guys think about this trade when you initially heard it? Was it good? Was it bad? Luigi, lead us off.
I am personally not a huge fan of Stephon Diggs. Not necessarily because of his on-the-field play, but because of his diva-like personality. I've never been one to be a fan of, and this is coming from a Tom Brady fan, so I guess I shouldn't really speak that much, but one who is a diva and likes to demand things the way Diggs and Odell do. I personally think with their 1st round pick, they could have gotten a wide receiver better than Stephon Diggs. And when I say better, I don't necessarily mean someone who is 100% better on the field, but one who is a better overall player and teammate. Now, whether or not his diva personality was only going to be in Minnesota, we'll have to see. But a name that I'm personally a huge fan of, and I keep hearing bad things from a lot of people, but Laviska Shenault, they don't have that type of wide receiver to be a possessional wide receiver. They've got a slot wide receiver, they've got a burner, but they don't have that guy that Josh Allen can throw the ball to, and whether or not it's 100% accurate, the wide receiver goes up and makes the play. And that's what he's missing. That really is what he's missing, because the Allen to Brown connection last year was actually one of the worst in the league last year when it came to accuracy. But Brown, correct me if I'm wrong, had like 1,000 yards and quite a few touchdowns. So Allen isn't the most accurate guy, and he needs that one guy that he can rely on to go up and make a play whenever he just throws the ball in the air and he doesn't have it. So that's what I think they're missing from the offensive perspective, because normally you also can rely on your tight end for that. But Dawson Knox had the most drops as a tight end last year. So, and I know a lot of that was because he's a rookie, but how much of that plays in the back of Josh Allen's mind? Like, hey, I threw to this guy so much last year and he dropped so many passes when I needed him to make a play.
I kind of agree. I think instead of trading for Stephon Diggs, I think they could have drafted a player. I kind of liked I think they could have gone after one of those wide receivers that's good at like contested catches, like a Denzel Mims, or maybe T Higgins would have been available. One of those like bigger guys. And I think Stephon Diggs, we have to see how he plays without Adam Thielen opposite him. I think he benefited a lot from playing opposite Adam Thielen as well.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people didn't give him enough credit, or Thielen enough credit for that. They all said that Thielen kind of benefited from Diggs. It'll be interesting to see how this pans out. Maybe it's what Josh Allen needs. Maybe it's what Diggs needs. We'll see here. Let's move to a team that has been slowly, very slowly inching their way up to being competitive, and that is the New York Jets.
3rd and goal from the 9. Darnold. Touchdown. Le'Veon Bell.
We're a couple years removed from Sam Darnold being drafted. For this team was going to be turned around, and here they are. They're slowly, steadily moving up. Le'Veon Bell is a good ad for them. They just lost Robbie Anderson. They bring in Brashad Perryman. Is this team making the right moves to move up? And you'll lead us off on this, Aaron. Or are they just kind of, it's all just keeping it level? It's just lateral movement for them.
Well, I think they show by their free agent signings, they kind of signed a few depth pieces. Like they added Pierre Desir, who's a decent cornerback, Brashad Perryman at wide receiver, George Fant on that offensive line, and then Greg Van Roten also on the offensive line. So I think they're kind of like, it looks like free agency, they mostly focused on adding depth. They also lost a few guys. Their biggest loss, I think, was Robbie Anderson at wide receiver. That's something that they definitely need to address. And then Tom Compton, Brandon Shell, and then a couple guys on the offensive line at Ryan Khalil and Kelvin Beachum. So right now it looks like what they need to address the most is wide receiver and offensive line, in my opinion.
I mean, all the reports right now are pointing signs towards Jerry Jeudy at 11, if he can be there. Now, Luigi, would you agree that wide receiver is what they need to get, or do you think like the Perriman ad is good enough?
I don't necessarily think Perriman is good enough, but I think that with the depth of wide receiver in this draft, they can go at a more needed position like corner or linebacker / edge at that first pick at 11. I just wanted to make a bold prediction here, actually. I love the signings of Greg Van Roten and Connor McGovern and all of them. I actually think this offensive line will be a top 10 offensive line this year compared to where they were at like 31 this past season. Those three in George Fant and Connor McGovern and Greg Van Roten, they don't give up many sacks. And if you look at the offensive line, what it's projected to be Greg Van Roten, Connor McGovern, George Fant. And the one thing that stands out to me is Chuma Edoga. He gave up like the 15th most sacks in the league of an offensive lineman this past season. Those three that I just named combined gave up 6 sacks last season, and Chuma Edoga gave up 6 sacks last season. So right tackle will be a need that they will address in this draft, but that is their one weakness, in my opinion, on their offensive line is right tackle. They addressed what they needed to. Their left tackle position was not very good this past season. They brought in George Fant, who I'm not going to say he's an elite left tackle, but he's good enough to be able to, guard the quarterback. I don't know really what else to say about it. He's quick on his feet. He gets off. What am I trying to think of? He gets off the snap, the line pretty quickly. I watched a lot of Chris Carson over the past couple of seasons. I am a big Chris Carson fan, and watching George Fant on that offensive line, it's pretty impressive to be able to see that big of a guy be able to move that quickly. So to get back to your question, sorry, I just wanted to speak on that real fast. But to get back to your question, I think they go defensive line or corner at that 11th pick. In my opinion, you don't take a corner that early unless it's Okudah, because there isn't a guy who I think belongs in that particular tier besides Okudah. So they may look at trading back just like 3 or 4 picks to somebody maybe like Denver who is interested in drafting a wide receiver. But even if you trade back 3 or 4 picks, you're still probably going to get that number 2 corner.
Well, CJ Henderson is on some executives' boards on par with Okudah. I also don't agree with that. However, I do think Henderson can be a legit cornerback in the NFL, and he can be a legit starter for this Jets team as well. I am on board with them not drafting a receiver in the first round just because of the depth it provides. Same thing with offensive line, like we keep talking. This team could get a more shallow position in the first round, and then whichever one falls to them at 48, they can just take the next guy there, which can be somebody like Michael Pittman Jr. potentially out of USC, who's been rising up boards a lot recently, and people are projecting could flirt with that first round. And this team, here's what's big concern for me for wide receiver. They bring in Perriman, they have Crowder. I've always been a big an Enunwa. Hang on a second, Aaron. How do you pronounce the last name? Enunwa, thank you. I've always been a big Enunwa fan. And so I think if he's healthy, they have enough pieces to be solid at the position, and they can add more depth later in the draft. So I like your take on not going receiver and not going offensive line in the first, but they do need to address offensive line in these first 3 rounds. Aaron?
So I really like the idea at number 11. I think if either Judy or CD Lamb are available, I would have a really hard time not grabbing them. And if not, I would go offensive line at that pick. I think, in my opinion, those are the 2 biggest needs. So that's what I would do at 11. Because if you don't get Judy or Lamb, then one of those top 4 tackles, I think, will be available.
And a trade back spot where you're talking, Luigi, is reports came out is that the Atlanta Falcons are going to want to trade up. They're going to be aggressive. And I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to want to go up and get another edge rusher potentially, or get that second best quarterback. And the Jets could capitalize. If the Jets can get another second round pick out of moving back a couple spots, that'd be huge for them, to where they can increase this team even better. And then they can get a defensive player in the first round and get both a wide receiver and a tackle in the second round. This Jets team is interesting to watch because their fans are torn. I've been looking online and everything. Their fans are literally wanting an offensive tackle, and the other half are wanting a wide receiver. So it all just depends on how flashy the front office wants to be. I'm really disappointed that we're not going to get to see fans booing them when they make their pick. I'm kind of hoping that sound effects will be added into this virtual draft, because that's kind of something I enjoy.
Maybe Roger Goodell will stream in he'll take advice from the Atlanta Falcons, and he'll stream in crowd noise.
But that's what I'm going to miss out on. But I like some of the moves they made in the offseason. I like the offensive line adds to the guy. Greg Van Roten's a really good. He played right guard last year. Really solid guard. This team could sneak up and move closer towards the playoff spot now that 7 teams are going to be making it in. Let's finish this division off with the team that owns the NFL draft, the Miami Dolphins.
Fitzpatrick has some time, going deep for Devontae Parker. 2 guys back there, and somehow Parker comes away with it.
This team didn't really lose anything besides some old players. They've gained some solid guys at multiple positions, and they have the most draft picks of the draft. Aaron, how's their offseason free agency look like?
Well, like you said, the only two real major players they lost are in the defensive backfield, Rashad Jones and Aqib Talib. They added a lot of guys, Kyle Van Noy and Shaq Lawson at the linebacker spot. They added Eric Flowers on the line. Byron Jones at corner from the Cowboys was a big add. They added Emmanuel Agba at the linebacker position, and then Jordan Howard to help out running the ball. I think they added a lot of solid pieces. I really liked all of their pickups, and they have 3 first-round picks. So I mean, they have a lot to work. 3 first-round picks. They have 2 second-round picks, and they have a lot to work with. They have I think 14 picks throughout the entire draft. So they can do pretty much whatever they want. They can trade up, trade down, pick whoever they want.
Of these free agent moves, Luigi, would you agree that this Dolphins team is moving in the right direction?
Oh yeah, 100%. They really needed to address their defense, because that was more of a glaring hole last year than any position. And when I say position, I mean offense, defense, and special teams. It just seemed like their offense towards the end of the season was moving in the right direction. They could even go through the Patriots at the end of the season, but they couldn't stop anybody. And picking up people like Emmanuel Agba and Shaq Lawson and Kyle Van Noy was really crucial, because now they can use those first-round picks to address their offense, which is where I think they're going to go with probably maybe all 3. The only thing I think they're missing is an actual edge rusher out of that entire group. But at their last pick, 26th, they could go for an edge rusher there and be perfectly fine with it. I don't think there's an edge rusher worthy enough to be taken maybe in the top 15 picks, unless you're absolutely desperate for it. And I don't think they're that desperate for it. But I wouldn't be surprised if I saw them draft Yetur Gross-Matos at 26, for instance.
Somebody that could be a nice pickup for him. It all depends on how the board falls. But if Kayvon Chasen falls a little bit, I mean, the guy has potential to be a top 15 pick in my eyes. But if he falls a little bit, I like him on the edge. I mean, his length isn't as great as some of these other guys like Gross-Matos that you just mentioned, but I think this team could get a legit. I mean, they're gonna get 5 starters. I feel in their first 5 picks, which all 5 of those picks happen in the top 56. I think they can come away with a starting quarterback, a starting running back, an edge rusher, another offensive lineman, and then just a wild card. Throw a dart at the board and take whatever you want at 56 type thing. I think that the moves they made at linebacker, they pretty much got guys that can make plays, is what I look at this. Like Shaq Lawson, Van Noy, Agba, Byron Jones. These guys just make plays. Jordan Howard is, for as much as people bash him for his play and everything, because he's not as, dynamic as other running backs, he's just consistency, is what he is. He stays healthy, he gets the ball, he runs down the field, and it's simple as that. There's nothing extra needed. What about Eric Flowers? Did he get overpaid, or is this where he should be, guys?
Eric Flowers has not been good for a while. I think he definitely is getting overpaid.
I don't necessarily think all of his bad play to do with him necessarily. That offensive line, I mean, I think all 3 of us could go out there and start for him. I mean, it's a bad offensive line. So it's hard for one guy to be able to carry the weight of a line. And not only that, but I don't think he's the type of guy to want to do that. So whenever he changes his team and maybe the team might be a little bit better of an offensive, a little bit better of an offensive line, it may help him tremendously. I think we could see a huge difference in his play last year and his play this year. Playing for a new team, hoping for a new contract, and maybe, like I said, even being a better offensive line, it could help him tremendously. So I don't necessarily think he's overpaid yet. I would have to see 1 year of him in Miami to be able to tell you that, to be able to answer that question.
Okay, fair enough. So this quarterback group that they have here with Fitz and Rosen is, I think, almost fine. For some reason, everybody's saying they're going to draft a quarterback at 5, which makes sense, I guess, in some factor of getting younger and getting better. However, this team could do serious damage, not just on the draft boards of everybody else, but they could improve their team a lot faster if they don't take somebody like Tua or Justin Herbert at 5, or if they don't trade up. I really think they could have a quick turnaround and a quick rebuild if they just get some starting talent and just roll with the quarterbacks they got. What do you guys think on that? Like, number 5, should they take a quarterback?
I think Tua is too good of a prospect to not take at number 5. As much as I feel bad for Josh Rosen. He's like one of my own and everything. I think you have to take Tua if he's available, even with his injury history. They have 3 first round picks. I think they have to take Tua, even if he doesn't work out next year. Go and get one like Trevor Lawrence, maybe if they're in a position to do that. And if Tua's not ready, play Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I think at 5, if Tua's there, they have to take him. I don't think Justin Herbert is on the same level or even close to the same level as Tua. And so if Tua's not there, then maybe go a different position. But I would have a hard time passing up Tua.
I kind of like, before you jump in, I kind of like how you said he's better than Justin Herbert. I saw a little report today. I didn't click it, though. But it was like Justin Herbert is just Mitch Trubisky with like an edge. Like, that's all. Like, it's not as much different. They're just classifying him as the same. But before we touch on...
So I watched that video. That guy has a lot of great analysis. I watched that video, and he does a really good job breaking down Justin Herbert's faults and weaknesses. And it's mainly just inconsistency and decision making. Like, he'll go out and have an amazing game, like against Colorado, and then you watch him against like Arizona State or Auburn, and he just has some awful decisions that he makes. So I really am not sold on Justin Herbert.
Okay, well, let's stay with Tua then. Luigi, do you agree that he is too good to pass up at 5 if he's available?
I do not. I think if you are going, just to play devil's advocate against Aaron, all of the picks that they have, the cap space rounds up to about $20 million just in terms of picks. And I think they have about $30 million in terms of cap space. If you decided as Coach Brian Flores, you decided that you wanted to go all out for this season, at number 5, you could take somebody who changes the dynamic of your entire draft, in the sense of get a position gone right off the bat. And what I mean by that is, I think if you're planning on going all out for this year, Tua is not the guy, because we don't even know if he's 100% healthy. So at number 5, you could trade back. I don't know who would be wanting to trade up in the top 11 or so, but you could trade back a little bit and pick up an extra 3rd or 2nd round pick, and then draft somebody like, I don't know, Tristan Wirfs or Mekhi Becton to lead your offensive line, and then you could potentially sign somebody like Cam Newton or Jameis Winston if you really decided that you wanted to go a different direction with your quarterback play. Fitzpatrick is not that bad of a quarterback. He has the same inconsistencies, in my opinion, that maybe somebody like Justin Herbert has. He'll have such a great game, and we'll be like, why is this guy not a starter? And then he'll come out and throw 4 interceptions. And we're like, oh, yeah, that's why that guy's not a starter. So if you really wanted to go in a different direction with your team over the next 1 or 2 years, and you're trying to go all out, because now is the time to do it. The Patriots are not the Patriots of before. This is the year that every team in the AFC East has a chance to win the division now. So if you really want to try to go all out and win the division this year, you don't take Tua at 5 overall. Because, like I said, you don't know if he's healthy. You really don't know with any of these quarterbacks. I mean, Burrow going number 1 is probably the most likely scenario. But I'm a huge LSU fan, but Burrow played 1 good year. I mean, his year in 2018 was decent, but it was nowhere near probably even a top 6 quarterback prospect in this draft type year. So this draft is interesting when it comes to the quarterback position because the better quarterback in this draft could be the guy you get in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th round. Somebody like Kenny Gordon, maybe. I mean, that guy, the way he plays just kind of reminds me of a Russell Wilson. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I just thought of something is like I believe they need another wide receiver, and a lot of people have been talking about Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb for a long time. If they decided to just go wide receiver at 5 and blow up everybody's boards and just make chaos happen all over the place, I wouldn't be mad at them. It would establish another star receiver across from Devontae Parker. It can, and I know a lot of Dolphins fans, if you're listening, you're going to be telling me Preston Williams is the next big thing, and he might be. Albert Wilson's a nice guy in the slot. Yeah, I think that you should have 3 solid receivers. Albert Wilson's a nice role player, but I think you need 3 solid receivers to compete in the NFL right now. And if they can draft a receiver right there, that'd be huge. I also think if they can get a tackle and improve their, one of their tackle spots, that would be huge as well. And it would completely change the dynamic of this team, change the dynamic of the draft. Let's talk a little bit deeper, though. 5 is fun and all. This team is probably going to draft a running back. Do you think they do it in the 1st round? Because I've heard a lot of people say if they don't take a running back in the 1st round, we get another year with no running backs in the 1st round. Do you guys think that is what they should do at either 18 or 26? And if so, who? Aaron, lead us off.
I think 18's too early to do that, and I think maybe even maybe even 26 is too early. If they do, I think someone like DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor, maybe even J.K. Dobbins at that spot. I think you would need for that running back to be the all-around complete running back, and I think that's a DeAndre Swift. So if they did take a running back in the 1st round, I think it would be at 26, and I think it would be DeAndre Swift or possibly Jonathan Taylor. But I don't think they'll do that, and I think they'll wait until probably one of their 2 picks in the 2nd round to take a running back.
I disagree. I think they will be taking a running back in the 1st round. You don't pass up on talent, in my opinion. If you have a positional need, and I know I'm going against a little bit what I said a few minutes ago, but if you have a positional need and there is a guy that you like at one of your picks, it's never too early to take that guy. Look at last year whenever the Raiders took Cleveland Farrell at 4th overall and shocked the entire world. That's the guy that they liked, even though he wasn't projected to be drafted until the 20s. That was the guy that they liked. They took him 4th overall. I think the Dolphins do the exact same thing, and I personally believe the most complete back in this draft is J.K. Dobbins. I think he is the more stereotypical 3-down back than DeAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor. So I think they will go J.K. Dobbins at either 18 or 26.
I agree to an extent. I just don't value running back. I'm on the whole, like, running backs aren't an important deal right now. So that's kind of how I see it. I think there's more important positions than running back at the moment.
What it's going to come down to is, like, if no running back has been taken by 26, I think the Dolphins, based on who's drafting after them up until 39, they could wait on running back for another 13 picks and in the second round get whatever running back they want. Even if like 2-3 running backs go off, J.K. Dobbins not performing at the combine might be good enough for the Dolphins to get him at 39, realistically, because people didn't get to see him. Now they didn't go see a pro day. I'm not saying it should hurt his draft stock, but some GMs will take that into account. If this team decides to punt on running back until 56, I think someone like Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be great for this team because he's such a great pass catcher. He's a safety net for quarterbacks. He would also be a nice complement to Jordan Howard. And this team essentially, I think, has the power to come out of this draft better than anybody else. I am hoping, and I'm not a Dolphins fan, but I'm hoping that we don't look back on this draft in like 4 years and just go, what the hell did they just do? They busted on everything, because this team statistically should hit on at least one guy, right? Like, one player should be good. So
yeah, one of their first 5 picks.
I mean, you'd have to be Cleveland Browns bad to miss on all of those picks. Like when they when they missed on Brady Quinn and or no, that was when they took Joe Thomas. But they've had a few years where they had multiple first round picks and missed on like one or both of them.
Poor Browns. They continue to be who you go to bash every time we talk about negativity. But
because it's funny. It's like, you know how the Patriots are supposed to be great year in year out. The Browns are bad no matter what.
The polar opposites. So, but hey, tides might be changing here. So this division is the division to watch if the 2020 NFL season happens, because so much can happen with all these teams. You know, we've seen solid moves from a lot of these guys. We've seen a lot of guys have potential to move up, and we might even see some teams fall from grace. So, that is all we got for us here on Second and Short. This officially, depending on how all this goes in the behind the scenes process, will be our longest episode to date, and is our final one of the draft series. Anything you guys would like to add before we get out of here?
Who do you guys think wins the AFC East?
I think it's still the Pats, as long as the Dark Lord is still there and force choking people. I think they're the ones to be beat.
You know, I've had a rule for a long time, and my rule always is like never bet against Tom Brady. I go the opposite of saying like don't count out Belichick. I think this is Buffalo's division. I just think Buffalo is solid all around to be able to take this division. However, I don't see the Pats falling off. Can you give us an unbiased take on who you think is going to win this division?
I will go and say a hot take again. Tyler, you know I love my hot takes. I think this division will belong to the New York Jets.
I like it. All of us are in different directions, which is great, because if we're just always agreeing, it's not as fun. But yeah, that's going to do it for us here at Second and Short. Luigi, thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun here. Everybody remember, click that like button, comment down below, tell us everything that I said wrong. If I misspelled something, let me know. Bottom right corner, click that subscribe button to keep up to date. We will have a mock draft coming out right before the NFL draft of the first round. And then at the very top, let's say you miss a previous divisional breakdown, click that icon up there to see all the past episodes. Again, I am Tyler Louder. He is Aaron Benn. Special guest Luigi. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
And I want to let everyone know that Jeff Lowe did an AMA on Reddit, and everyone bashed him, and it's worth a read. Go do it.